So what I would like to do for a few minutes is to speak on this idea of Shavuot and its connection to the holiday of the Feast of Weeks and the people of the nations, how they are brought into this whole thing, which you would think that there's no connection between any of these three things. The Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, is also known as the festival of receiving the Torah, Matan Torah. We find this in Yoma 4b, as well as it's called the first fruit, a festival of first fruit, which is found in Exodus 34:22. As a matter of fact, it's named about 4 different things all through the text. Whether it's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, it's named something different. But this whole idea of Hag Matan Torateinu is deeply ingrained in the conscience of every observant Jew, and it finds the expression in rules and customs associated with the festival. The second theme, you have Shavuot, the second theme, being the festival of first fruits, remains a bit in the dark, with no practical expression or way to even practice this observance. Why is it impossible to practice first fruits right now?
No temple.
No temple. Second of all, we don't live in the land. Third of all, it has to be fruit from the land or the Syrian basin, etc. It has to come from that region. So the idea is first fruits is pretty much has no connection to us at all, but it is connected in all different ways to Shavuot. And how is that? As we talk today, I would like for your mind to go back to the day that you received Torah, you had your Matan Torah. I would like to just for a moment encourage the righteous tzaddik Jews that are watching this video to be patient and allow us for a moment to express our wonderful gratitude for the Torah. For it is the from birth Jew who has no idea what it's like to find the well of living water. They have no idea. I respect them. They have been the example that we should follow in their love and devotion to Hashem, but they don't know what it's like, as Rabbi Singer said the other day, and I think also expressed by Adam, you don't know what it's like to eat a pork sandwich or bacon and then walk away from it all. And it's kind of doing it tongue-in-cheek, but no one realizes, unless you've been through or walked in our situation, what turmoil you have gone through to get there.
And how tasty it is.
Yes, how tasty Torah is, right? Yes. We all know that Israel had their own journey of difficulties. We understand that. And we understand that whenever they were in the wilderness, they had Matan Torah, but it was 40 years later that they were able to enter the land. And then upon entering the land, God reminds them there will be a Feast of Weeks. And in this Feast of Weeks, you will bring first fruit. What was the first fruit from the land? It was very specific what it had to be. This first fruit offering is really interesting because there were things that had to be recited by the farmer that seems to have no connection at all to living in the land. It was a reminder of this farmer that his father, Abraham, was in exile, basically, or what do you call it? What's another word for it? Not an exile, but not exile. Help me. Outsider. He was an outsider, but a fugitive. He was a fugitive, and fugitive from pagan justice that was seeking to trample him. And it's a reminder also to the farmer when he recites the prayer that this was a remembrance that Hashem had given them the land. That when you get into the land, you shall do X, Y, Z. And because of that, we see that the Feast of Weeks and Shavuot are tied together. Why are they tied together? Because the people could never be in the land if it wasn't for the giving of Torah. It is the giving of Torah and the adherence to Torah law that allows them to stay in the land. We see it all connected. You think, well, how does Shavuot have anything to do with the nations? We're not commanded to bring first fruits. We're not commanded to observe the weeks, Feast of Weeks. However, every human being in the nations, they are invited to taste and see that Torah is good. And we're living in a time where biblical prophecy is being fulfilled at this very moment, in which people are hearing the sound of a shofar, they're seeing the words of the Hebrew for the first time, maybe listening to a lecture, and their heart burns within them. And all of a sudden they realize they have some kind of Yiddish kishkas inside. The guts inside of them is somehow connected to the land of Israel and the Jewish people. And they don't even understand how, they don't understand why, they just know they're in love. Like this call that I received Monday from a pastor in Northern Ireland who, after their journey of about 6 years of deep study of Torah, decided to resign the church on Monday. It was his last day. And they had watched the video the few days before on my testimony and said, if he can do it, I can do it. We're living in an age in which people are risking all of their financial well-being to receive Torah. And just like the people of God in the desert who risked hunger and thirst and isolation to receive Torah, and in reality, that wilderness experience was like a honeymoon. They don't realize it. There were some still complaining. You know, my parents used to say you would complain if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, right? Or my dad would say you would complain if you had a ruby in your navel, right? I don't even know what that means, but the whole point is there's going to be people who complain, but that was the closest they were to Hashem. But when I think about my own journey, and when you think about your journey, I think you're going to agree. Your relationship probably was the most sincere and deep when you were so blind and grasping for Hashem. Everything that you tried to grab a hold of, you grabbed a hold of, and you realized it was the Creator. And then more revelation came, and your eyes were opened a little bit more, and you would weep, and you would cry, and you would flay yourself to draw closer to Hashem, and you would suffer because people thought you were out of your mind. Some of you lost relationships of dear people that you love, family members, all for the sake of your own Matan Torah, your own revealing of Torah. And we enter into this time of Shavuot in which we celebrate the giving of Torah. But what's unique about the giving of Torah to the people of the nations, it's just now happening. This is just the scratch of the surface. I received a message from a rabbi from Israel that's a part of the Noahide, world community. And we're going to have a conversation tomorrow afternoon. And he said, we're establishing so many Noahide centers. I think I really could use the help in trying to get them connected with what you're doing as well. They're opening, we're talking about all over the world. Noahide centers are popping up. We're living in a time in which, at some level, this year, we're seeing the giving of Torah to the nations, unlike we've ever seen it before. A pastor of 40 years in Africa stood up in front of his congregation. I saw the video myself. In front of the whole community of people, a couple of hundred people, who are now B'nai Noach, said, for 40 years I lived a lie. How could I not have seen this truth? It's huge, huge, folk. If you don't realize that we're actually living our own Matan Torah, we're standing at the foot of Mount Sinai right now. And we're watching Torah come in. And it's not because of what I'm doing, what NETIV's doing, what any of the other rabbis doing. It's because it is a divine unction that is taking place in the world. It's like rain coming down from heaven. It would be like the farmer taking credit for rain on his crops. We're experiencing it. Now we have to see what our role is in promoting and talking about it and spending time finding people that are hungry and want to know Torah. With this all being sort of said, This week is going to be very special for all of us, and especially for those who have just come to the knowledge of God, the knowledge of the Torah, and you've released the shackles of idolatry. You're no longer committing avodah zarah, but you're committing your service to Hashem. And at this Shavuot, I pray that your heart is so relieved of this burden that you carried for so long, and the beauty of the Torah that enriches your life now. May your tears no longer be tears of sorrow because of what you don't know, but tears of joy because of what you do know. And that is Hashem's loving kindness toward the people of the nations. We think we've come this far in such a short time, in 3 years. Can you imagine what the next 3 to 5 years is going to be? Hashem is doing a mighty work in the land. And I'm reminded of this text in which he said, with a mighty what? And an outstretched arm, I will what? He will bring his people back. And as a residue of the people that are returning back to their Judaism is also people in the nations that are being plucked out of the soil of idolatry and paganism and brought to the knowledge of God. What a great day we live. May Hashem give you great knowledge, and may Torah celebration this week for Shavuot be rich as Torah is rich. Amen.